Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. We're going to be talking about buyer consultations and buyer broker agreements. And I don't want to necessarily get into why you should, because I think we all know that is how things are going. And I think a lot of people actually already do buyer consultations or have buyer broker agreements. That is just part of the natural process of how they do business in most of the states. And I know that a lot of you guys don't. And so hopefully you guys have had enough training on that. So we're not going to necessarily focus too deep on the why you should. I wanted to touch a little bit about understanding one of the things that I think are really important to me of why I'm excited about this change. One of the big things is I believe that it is going to allow agents to be a little bit more upfront with their buyers with how they're getting compensated, what their compensation is going to be, so there's no conflict of interest. In the past, I don't know for those people that are in states where you guys have been signing buyer broker agreements for a very long time, that's just how you guys do business. If you can chime in, I'd really appreciate it. I think it's, for the areas that were not the case, there was a level of misunderstanding of how buyers agents got paid, and there was a level of confusion from the buyer to the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent a lot of times would use that to their advantage and would kind of steer them to properties that paid a more commission, right? So if there's, let's say, 3 homes that were being shown and one property paid 2.5%, one property paid 2%, one property paid 3%, that agent, even if they were doing on a subconscious level, would kind of steer those clients more towards the home that was paying more compensation. Because at the end of the day, as agents, we were doing the same amount of work independent of what we were being offered in compensation. And so we just naturally were like, oh, well, here's all the benefits and features of this particular property that paid more, and then would kind of downplay the ones that were paying less. Now, who has ever been in that situation that's happened to you, or you've either done it or know that it has happened? Raise your hand. Don't be honest about it. Yep. Again, if one way or another, we've all done that, right? And so this is going to make it to where it's going to be very simple, because in the past, the compensation I was offered was completely dictated upon the seller making a decision of what they offered, or I guess in a better term is to say what the listing agent decided I was worth. And what I love about the buyer broker agreement moving forward, and for those that are in states where you guys are always done it that way, where you get to call the shots on what your compensation is. And I love that. I love that you get to say, hey, I'm worth 3%, I'm worth 4%, I'm worth whatever percentage it is, and you get to call that shot. And then therefore, as long as you're able to articulate that, and that's kind of going to be the bread and butter of what we talk about today, is how you show value so that you can earn that compensation. So for those that have joined, welcome. I invite you guys to turn your cameras on if you can. Welcome to this week's masterclass. We will be discussing a little bit more on how to present a consultation to a buyer on what our worth is. And if I'm going to hopefully have this a little bit be more interactive here, can you guys share with me what you feel is your top value proposition that you feel like you have to a buyer? Like if a buyer were to ask you, and hopefully this doesn't scare you, if I were to ask you, what is the number one thing? What is the number one thing that, if a buyer's going to say, why should I hire you to represent me in the sale or in the purchase of my home? What would that be? If you guys can unmute yourself, if you think you've got a good answer, I'd love to be able to hear it. What do you guys think? And just on a side note, I am not afraid of silence. So if you guys make me wait in silence, I have no problem with that. So who has a good one for us? I think, yeah.
My experience, my years of expertise.
Okay.
And coaching skills.
So, and to be specific, Tammy, what does those years of expertise, how does it benefit me as a buyer? Can you be more specific?
Sure. I mean, because of my knowledge in the market that I'm in and what I'm going to do to help you know if the offer that you're presenting is not only a fair offer, but that the property actually, the price justifies that, by giving you statistics and knowing that, if you move forward on this property, that you're, again, presenting a fair offer and they're asking a fair price. but it's many aspects. It's helping you through everything from the offer and the way you're going to present it to inspections, know what to look for, to the negotiations. So it's multiple things all the way through, start to finish.
It is hard to articulate in just the one thing, isn't it? Ryan, did you have one?
Yeah, so I've been working with my coach on my UVPs, and I was overthinking my UVPs, and he said to dumb it down a little bit. He says, your clients want you because A, you're a great communicator. So being able to communicate, being free for them to communicate, answering their questions, being readily available. I'm a full-time agent. I'm not a part-time agent. That's what they care about. They don't care how long I've been in the business. They don't care what areas I've served. They don't care how many houses I've sold. They want to know that I will take care of them when they have questions, and I'm going to give them the right answer.
I would argue that, Ryan, that they do care. There's just a level of an expectation that you know more than they do. Right?
Correct.
There's a level of like, obviously, I would not hire someone that hasn't done this more than I have, right? Because if someone's done it more than you have, then you really don't serve a purpose because you have less knowledge than they do. So they expect a level of knowledge that comes from being a real estate agent, or an expected knowledge that they assume is just a part of the job, right? Okay, does anybody else have one that you feel like, hey, this is like my golden bullet or silver bullet, I guess is the best way to say it. All right, I don't know who's
I put negotiations. I feel like
okay.
I'm 4 years into the business, and to elaborate, I don't really get asked how long I've been doing this. So I do let them know during the buyer consultation that I will negotiate on their behalf and represent them. So whether that's during the inspection period, if they need to get repairs done, or a credit in lieu of repairs, all from the appraisal. So I would say probably negotiations. I fight for my clients.
Very good. I love that, Brittany. Thank you. Okay, guys, I have 10 things here are your absolute, like, you need to have this in your buyer presentation or buyer consultation when you're doing it. Now, some of these things, if it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. Don't put it in. But, you know, maybe there's some nuggets that you can take away that you can either have it in written form, or you're at least able to articulate when you're talking to a buyer of why they should hire you. Number one, and Tammy mentioned a little bit of this, is market expertise. It is absolutely our responsibility as agents to be able to know the market inside and out. Now, if they're buying in an area where we're not that comfortable with or we're not familiar with, then it's our responsibility, because we know how to get the information that we need to be able to give our clients that information so they can know how to make a proper offer, right? How to put that offer together in a way that's going to say, hey, this home, based on its features and benefits, is in line with the list price or is not in line. And obviously take into consideration how many offers they have on the table. So being able to truly give them market knowledge for that home, that specific home that they want to buy, I think is absolutely critical, because buyers need information to be able to make an informed decision, because ultimately it's them that's going to be making the offer, not you. Okay. The second one is, this may apply, this may not apply, is access to off-market listings. I think sometimes agents gloss over this one, or they don't think about it, but it happens, right? How many of you guys have ever sold a home off market? Raise your hand. Yeah, we all have, right? We've been able to bring a buyer to a table or bring a seller to a table and put the deal together. I remember once, this was a while back, and I think I shared with you guys. I had a friend of mine who was an attorney who was absolutely upset with me, not with me, but expressing his frustration with me, because he was doing all the paperwork needed for a commercial building that was sold by this agent. And the agent represented the buyer and the seller, or the investor and the seller together. And it was a big commercial building. And the agent himself made $500,000 commission on that transaction. $500,000 commission. It was a big deal, right? A big transaction. The attorney that was doing just the paperwork made $15,000. And this particular attorney was upset that he was making $15,000 when the agent didn't do anything except bring the buyer and seller together and was making $500,000. And I said, I want you to know that being able to access that buyer and seller and bring those two together is a huge part of our business, right? Because if it wasn't for that agent, that buyer and seller would have never met, and that deal would have never happened. And I don't care how well and articulate that attorney was and how well that paperwork was put together, that sale would have never come through if that salesperson hadn't brought those two people together, right? Would you guys agree? And that was a huge part of our business. And so if you bring off-market properties to your buyer, or I mean, I guess we'll leave it at that because we're not talking about the listing side right now. But if you're able to, because of your connections, know who has listings that are off market or are going to go and fight and find those sellers that are willing to sell a property according to what the buyer's looking for, that's a huge value prop that you can bring to the table that they would not be able to find on Zillow or any other website. You guys agree? And so if you guys agree and that's not part of your value prop, I invite you guys to have it be an absolute value prop that you guys offer. The third one, which is also talked about by Brittany, is your negotiating skills. Now, again, you might say, well, gosh, Nazar, I don't have a ton of negotiating skills. Well, that's when you can lean on the team that you're part of, or just even this group here, right? There's lots of knowledge out there on how to negotiate properly. And I invite you guys, if you don't feel secure in your negotiating skills, to either take classes or read books, or find other ways to be able to increase your skill set and how to negotiate properly, right? Books are, I think, a great way. Online is a great way. There's several easy, simple YouTube videos that you can watch to be able to help you know how to become a better negotiator. I invite you guys to level up your skill set when it comes to negotiating, because I believe you take everything else away, that truly is one of the biggest assets and attributes that we bring to the table. Because, and we'll discuss this in a minute when we talk about objection handling, is that when you are representing the buyer and are getting paid by the buyer, then your sole responsibility is to make sure that that buyer is getting the very best deal and the very best terms possible, right? And so it's absolutely critical that we know how to negotiate on their behalf. And if they are a better negotiator than us, then we are not needed. Let that sink in, right? If the buyer can negotiate better than us, then we really don't serve a purpose, okay? Number 4, handling paperwork. Now you might say, well, gosh, I have a transaction manager that handles that. Yes, you may have someone that is a phenomenal person that handles all of your paperwork, but it's absolutely your responsibility as the buyer's agent, because you're being hired for that, to be able to explain and articulate every single paragraph that's in the documents in which they are bound by to sign. So if you guys don't know the paperwork that is associated with your state that you have to sign to represent a buyer, then I encourage you guys every single day, even if it's just something that you've already made them sign a whole bunch of times, but like if I were to tell you, hey, page 4 of this document, what does it say? And if you can't really explain it, that means you don't know it yourself, and that means that you're going to sound like an idiot. And so that, again, that's another value proposition that you bring to the buyer, is by being able to know every single paragraph of every single document that is in the forms that we have that we fill out and we get the seller to sign, or the buyer to sign, excuse me. So know that inside and out, and then be able to articulate that. Say, hey, listen, buying a home, there's all facets of the buying process, but one of the big facets is this document, or these documents that you're going to be signing. It's critical that you know, because there's a lot of timelines associated with these documents, and if those timelines are not met or they're missed, there's some hefty consequences with those, aren't there? Right? There's big earnest money deposits that are on the line. There are, the obligation to purchase or obligation to sell. There's a lot of responsibilities when it comes to every single one of those paragraphs. And we as agents, even though we are not attorneys, we need to know every single paragraph backwards and forwards, so we can explain to that in a way that's going to help them understand and clearly digest that information, so they know exactly what they're signing and feel comfortable with that process. Number 5, this goes back to a little bit of off-market properties, but it's about knowing or having a professional network. Again, this is something that also agents take for granted. We have a huge network of professionals that we deal with inside of our organization, outside of our organization, inside a Tom Ferry network, if you're part of it, or any other business networks that you're part of. This is a huge way for us to be able to help our clients, both in buying and selling property. Now, professional networks allow us to be able to find off-market properties. It also helps us to be able to help them know what lenders they should be talking to, what inspection companies they should be talking to, what repair, services, contractors. All those professional networks that we're a part of will help them. Attorneys, right? Property management companies, all those companies. Like, if you don't have a list of that for them, now you don't have to have names and numbers of them, but you should be able to have a list of every single type of professional network that you are either associated with or know that you could help them. And this is something that, again, it's just another value of adding that we can present to a buyer in a buyer consultation that's going to help them feel comfortable and say, oh, wow, I didn't realize I might need that person. I didn't realize I might need, someone that can handle that aspect of it. Even if it's just like, hey, do you have a trust set up? You don't have a trust set up yet? Well, you're buying your biggest asset right now. I encourage you guys to be able to get a trust set up. And here's 2 or 3 attorneys that I recommend that you can talk to about knowing how to, set up a trust, what the cost is going to be, and how to be able to put this home in a trust or in an LLC if it's an investment, right? Those types of things that they might not even realize they need help with. The more times we can help them understand or help them like have a little epiphany, oh shoot, I didn't know that, I didn't even know that. And you can bring that to the table. Guess what? That's going to set you apart from other agents that maybe also having that consultation with them, because right now it might not be the case, but I promise you in the future, you will be just like a listing agent competing with a buyer or other buyer's agents for the job of representing that buyer and purchasing a home, right? That might not happen right now. Some of you guys may have had that experience, and it may have not been where, you get that call saying, hey, I'm looking to interview 3 buyer's agents for the job of helping me buy a property. I'd like to interview tomorrow at 5 o'clock, right? Has anyone had that phone call yet? Yeah. And it's not a no, it's a not yet. It's going to happen. And if you're not prepared, you're going to miss out. You're going to lose out significantly. Number 6 is guidance to financing. It's not only just being able to help them understand and guide them in the direction of a lender that you know and trust, but it's also being able to give them guidance and give them information on, hey, here's the things that I would look for, or here are the things that you may consider. Okay. A lot of the low class or poor to middle class mindset is to buy a home and pay it off as soon as possible. And as investors or as real estate agents that deal with a lot of investors, we know that's probably the worst advice that a financial person can give to a home or to a buyer of a property, right? Buying a home and paying it off as quick as possible is the worst advice you can to create generational wealth. And we know that. And so being able to give them that type of guidance and understanding could help them build their future and their generation's future, if that's something they're interested in. Okay. Number 4 is future resale advice. You guys thought about that before? Right? If someone buys a home, the backyard is on a super busy street, to them, they might not care. If you live in an area where there's a massive, huge Asian influence, and if they look at a home that's on a T intersection, they might not care. Right? If you buy a home that around there, you may not know this, but by telling them, hey, you might check Megan's Law because there might be some sex offenders that live next door. Now, again, I wouldn't advise you to go on the Megan's Law's sex offender website to search. But if you're representing a family, there might be something you might want to tell them about, saying, hey, you may want to, with every single home that you're potentially interested in buying, go on Megan's Law and see if that's something that's important to you. Right? See if that's something that's a big deal or not to you. But it's our responsibility to provide them with information that could either impact them that moment or could impact them in the future when they go to resell the home. Right? Some people might say, I don't give a crap. I don't have any kids, and therefore I don't care about schools or school ratings. Well, they might not care, but when they go to sell the home, and if you know that they're going to be selling the home the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then schools may be something they may take into consideration in the location in which they buy, even if they themselves don't give a crap about it. Same thing goes with the HOA fees, amenities of an HOA, if it's in an HOA, right? Those types of things, the location of the property is critical. And we as agents know it's all about location, location, location. And I'm gonna say it 2 more times because we're at 5, location, right? Super important to know that. Strategic bidding, right? Making an offer. This goes a little bit hand in hand with the negotiations, but it's a little bit different in that it's important to know as agents, not only the price of the property, the listed price, but also knowing how many offers there are and how that impacts the value of that home. And also being able to help them understand that, right? Because if you get into a bidding war situation and they end up overpaying for the property, it's important for them to know that. And it's our responsibility as the buyer's agent, exclusively working with the buyer, to help them know that. Saying, hey, listen, if this was just any normal market, this home would sell for X. But because we're in a very tight, constricted market right now, and because this home has yada, 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 this home's going to ultimately sell for above market. Okay. Now, who's ever paid more than MSRP for a car before? Has anyone done that in the last 3, 4 years? Paid more than MSRP for a car? Am I the only schmuck? Okay, I guess I'm the only schmuck. So I have paid more than MSRP for a car before. I did not like it because, normally you're used to taking things off of the MSRP, not add to, but how to do that. Why? Because the car I wanted, everyone else wanted, and I wanted it more than they did, and so I paid more for that vehicle. Same thing happens in a house, right? If someone wants it more, then they're gonna have to pay more, even though when they go to resell that home, it might not be that same demand is there anymore, right? And so that's something to absolutely take into consideration. Number 9, strategic or saving time. Now this goes, you can say, well, I'm going to help you find properties, I'm going to help you negotiate, but even if finding the property is something that they do because they're on websites and looking stuff like that, you do save them time. How do we do that? We save them time by making those appointments, coordinating schedules of one home to another, right? If they were to call listing agents one by one, they can be wasting so much time, might not be getting phone calls back, and it just becomes a whole massive mess. But if they have us represent them, we're gonna be able to coordinate all of the homes that they want to see in the proper order, drive them from point A to point B in its perfect timing. Like, we're gonna have that all orchestrated, right? Some of you guys have that down to a science. I remember I did back in the day, and trust me, back in the day when I was having my Thomas guide out, like, it was such a shit show when you're like showing properties, because you're like, you'd make a left and you're supposed to make a right, and you'd feel so dumb because you'd have to make a U-turn and give that sheepish look to your clients, like, sorry, we made a left, we're supposed to make a right, follow me here, I promise I'm not that stupid. But nowadays with GPS, and even that, sometimes it fails us, but ultimately our job is to save our clients money and time, and we absolutely do that. So that's another value proposition. And then problem solving. Who's ever had to like put on their problem solving hats and try to figure out how to rig a deal to make it work to save the deal? Who's done that before? Yeah, we all have, right? We become what's it called, deal doctors, right? We're able to figure out, okay, what is the problem here, what's the issue? And sometimes it's just an agent getting in the way of the deal happening, right? The listing agent's ego. It could be our own ego. It could be where the buyer's like just completely just stuck on this one particular thing, and you're able to help understand that, hey, listen, like, I don't have an emotional attachment to this, so just let me help you see it from a higher perspective, because they're so stuck in the weeds, and we're able to help them understand that process. And so helping them problem solve is absolutely a critical way for us to be able to help deliver value, bring value to the clients. Okay. Did you guys find value in those 10 things? No.
Yes.
Okay, well, I've got 5 more. I've got 5 more. Why? Just because I do. Number 1 is zoning, right? I know that Peter, if he's on here, one of his favorite stories he loves to tell, he tells it all the time, is how he was able to help his clients not buy property that was like a couple blocks away from a sewer plant or a water treatment facility, and it smells like poop all the time there. And like, literally, if you were just out of the area and just coming and buying property, the home was beautiful, and you might not realize why it's priced as well as it is. But if you as an agent know about the location and the zoning requirements of saying, hey, this is that, or I know that Mike, I just watched one of his reels that talks about, he was able to help his client buy a home for $800,000. He's going to put an ADU in the back, he's going to convert the garage, and he's going to add value to that property and sell it for 1.6, 1.7, whatever it was. Like, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. And knowing the zoning to be able to do that, again, it's something that we as agents bring to the table that they may not understand or know, or don't have the time to figure out, right? If I can go to one person and that person could help me buy an investment property and make $200,000 when it's all said and done, yeah, that's massive value to me. That's massive value. We're also emotionally detached from the home, right? Who's made bad decisions based on emotions? Anybody? Everyone should be raising their hand, because we've all made really bad decisions. Ryan's made 10 bad decisions based on emotions, and you guys, we've all done it. And so as an agent, we're not emotionally attached, are we? We're like, listen, this is just a transaction for us, and we're not heartless, but there's no vested interest in us. And because of that, we can be very, very like transparent and say, hey, listen, I know you really, really, really like this property because it has pink carpet, but I'm telling you, it's in a really bad location. Or here are the reasons why you may not want to buy this home, and here are the reasons why you do. Subjectively, we could be like that. We could be subjective. And I think it's super critical. Market analysis, I think it's like, I want to double down on this because I really believe that I have helped a lot of my clients save a lot of money because of my market knowledge, both in making an offer on a property and ultimately buying the home, or avoiding buying a home because of how much knowledge I have. If you guys are not constantly previewing homes in areas in which you serve, you're missing out, because by doing so, it has helped me help my clients avoid mistakes. It has allowed me to be able to speak very, very clearly on what I believe and having a pulse on the market, and that's absolutely critical. A couple more things. Ethical consideration, right? We have an ethical consideration for our seller or our buyer exclusively. We're not representing both buyer and seller, and because of that, we can be very, very ethically doing what's best for them. And that's what I love about the buyer broker agreement, because it eliminates that one thing for me that made me feel a little kind of gross or icky, if you will, if that's a word. Of now I don't have to like try to sway them in one direction or another. I can be very transparent, and I have no vested interest in the home that they buy, because I'm going to get paid what I'm going to get paid, independent of what they pick. And I love that. And I think it's absolutely critical that we're able to provide that to them. And the last thing is after sales support. How many times do you guys give your clients information and help them with, property taxes and, access to a plumber or a roofer or someone else? Like how much value do you guys give them after the sale closes? Raise your hand. Do you guys do a lot of that or no? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not one and doneing it, right? We're not saying, hey, it was great to know you, and then never talk to them again. We're providing service after the fact because we want the referrals, right? That's our selfish motive. But ultimately, we want to be able to help them. We want to be able to help guide them, to be able to help them, make sure that things are going good, because selling home, moving specifically, is such a stressful, obnoxious process. If you guys have moved in the last year or two, you realize how much of a pain in the butt it is. Not just the actual physical moving, but just coordinating, utilities, turning it off, turning it on, moving it, and just coordinating all the things is just so stressful. And the more we as agents preemptively could provide them value and make their lives easier and simpler, that's where we shine. That's where we shine, you guys. Because if all you're doing is just showing a house, being a door opener, writing an offer, closing escrow, never talking to your clients again, then you're basically use them, and they feel used, and they feel like, man, that was such a waste. And when they have to write that check, it's an entirely different experience, right? I'm with my older two boys right now. We're on this trip together, and yesterday they went skydiving. I would not do it because I'm a little chicken crap, and I won't jump off a plane that's flying well. And I we asked them afterwards, like, how does it go? They're like, that was awesome. And we said, would you do it again? They said, oh, totally, as long as I don't have to pay for it. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. As long as you don't have to pay for it, you'll do stuff. Kids will just take advantage of things because they don't see the value in the things because they don't have to pay for it, right? But when a buyer has to now have to pay for our services, guess what? They're gonna be a lot more critical of our services, aren't they? They're gonna be a lot more critical. They're gonna be like, wait a minute, dude. I put up with your crap in the past because I didn't have to pay you. In their mind, I didn't have to pay you. But now that I do, I'm gonna be a lot more conscientious about this. Okay. Now, we have a couple more minutes. If you would indulge me, I'm going to have 5 things I want to share with you guys on objections that we may get when someone's asking us, well, you know what, I'm just going to go directly to the listing agent, right? If you have not got that in the past, you will get that moving forward. They might not tell you that they're doing that, but they're going to do it anyway. They're going to say, I'm just going to go direct to the listing agent. I'll save money that way, right? I'll save money. The first thing we can say is, well, it's a conflict of interest. Absolute conflict of interest, right? Because the seller is going to want the highest price possible, the best terms, and the listing agent is represented by that seller is going to want those things for them. And a buyer that goes to the listing agent, that listing agent is not going to be able to provide them that same level of interest without any conflict, because there's absolutely conflict because they want the exact opposite of what the seller wants, right? So that's absolutely critical. Now, there's multiple ways in which we can articulate that fact. Right. I like using attorneys as an example. There could be other examples that we can use as well to be able to articulate conflict of interest. Right. Does anybody have one that they really like to be able to show or share with a client to help them understand what the difference between conflict of interest is? Anybody have one that's different than using attorneys as an example? Do none of you guys do that? None of you guys share an example of how it could be conflict of interest?
I always say one simple sentence. How does the other guy will get you a good deal if he's working so hard to get the sellers a good deal?
Yep. I love that. Yeah, how in the world is the listing agent going to get you the best deal possible if that's exactly what they're doing to the seller, and the seller wants the complete opposite of what you want? Right? If the seller wants the highest price possible, how can that agent that's representing them get you the very best price possible? It doesn't exist, right? If you are being sued by somebody, or if you are suing somebody, you're not going to want the other side to use your attorney that you've hired to sue them, nor are you going to want to hire their attorney to represent you if you're being sued by them, right? It just makes no sense at all. And in real estate, it's exactly the same way, right? And in fact, you might be sued for like $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000. You'd still not use their attorney. But in this situation, they're buying a 200, 500 million, $5 million property or more. You would never use the same attorney, right? That just does not make sense. And it works the same way. And the second reason why they wouldn't want to use the listing agent is because of full representation, right? Aside from it being a conflict of interest, it's full representation. They don't have the capacity. They can't give you the same honesty and loyalty that they owe you than they owe to the listing agent or the seller. They can't do that. And because of that, they have to pick sides. They have to represent you in a limited fashion. That's going to put you in a massive disadvantage, right? You don't want that to happen when you're buying your most expensive asset. And then negotiating leverage. You're not going to have any leverage to use against them, right? Like, you've heard of like an amicable divorce, right? A lot of times people are getting divorced. If they're amicable, if they're not like fighting and want to like wring each other's necks, they'll use the same attorney. You've heard of that experience, right? They'll use the same attorney, and guess what their attorney does? They basically try to help each other compromise and come to some form of mutual agreed, outcome. Mutual agreed. What does that mean to be mutually agreed? That means that they're both making sacrifices, right?
Mhm.
In a situation where you're buying a home, you don't want to make sacrifices. You want someone that's a bulldog that's going to represent you and get as much as you possibly can from the other side, because that's exactly what they're doing, right? The seller wants you to pay top dollar, remove all contingencies, never step inside the home, not do a home inspection, remove loan and appraisal contingency, and pay all cash and close tomorrow, and let them stay in the property for a year rent free so they can then find another property. Like, they want all the best terms. And you as a buyer want the complete opposite of that, right? You want to buy the home for $1 and you want them to pay you money. Like, you guys get the drift. So it's a complete conflict of interest, and it's our responsibility to help them understand that. You've got confidentiality as another reason. Like, they are going to confide in you things that they tell you that you're not going to share with the other side. If you're going directly to the listing agent, you can't confide anything in them, because they're going to tell the listing agent or the seller, right? You need to be able to have something that you can tell and be completely share all of your, hey, this is what my bottom line is. This is the most I'm willing to pay. These are the terms I'm willing to not budge in, or these are the things I'm willing to budge in. And as an agent that represents the buyer, right, you're going to share that. You're not going to share that with the other side. You're going to hold that close to your chest, right? You're going to know that information to help them better negotiate, but you're not going to tell them. And if they're representing, or if they go directly to the listing agent, guess what? Whatever they share to them is not in confidence anymore. It becomes open knowledge that they can share with the listing agent, and you definitely don't want that. Expert guidance, right? Being able to help them, guide them along the way. I have here avoiding emotional decisions. That's another thing. Like, if you are representing them and they go directly to the other agent, they're not going to have that. But you could provide that for them. You could provide that information to them in a way that's going to keep them, hey, there's no conflict that you have, right? The listing agent's going to want to represent both sides because they're going to make more money. You're not going to have that. It's also important to be able to help buyers understand that if they go to directly to the listing agent, in their mind, they might think that they're saving money on the commission, or they don't have to pay commission, but they do. Because listing agents are not going to work for free. They're going to have either in their own contract with the listing, with the seller, saying, hey, I'm going to represent you, and this is my fee to represent you in the selling side, the listing side. If a buyer comes along without representation, then my fee is going to go up. And either I'm going to get that commission delta by you, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, or the buyer's going to pay for it. For whatever reason, buyers think that they can somehow mitigate that or eliminate that fee out of the equation by going directly to the one person. Just because it's one person doesn't mean they're going to do one side of the transaction for free. There's nothing free in this world. So helping them understand that there's going to be a cost, right? Either they're going to have to incur that cost, or the seller's going to incur that cost, So why would they want to go directly to the listing agent, lose out on all of that, all those benefits of having a buyer representation alone, and still have to pay? Because at the end of the day, the seller's going to pay or they're going to pay. Someone's going to have to pay that agent to do both of those two different jobs. Okay. So those are the things that I would share. And again, with any other ones that you guys have. Again, I know they've gone on. Do you guys have any questions about any of this? Is there anything you guys want clarity on, or feel like, hey, Nazar, this is actually one point that I would make that you didn't discuss that everyone else can benefit here?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I'm a newer agent with no much experience or that big of a sales record, how can I show up that confident when I'm talking to the buyer?
That's a great question. Yeah, if you're a newer agent or don't have a lot of experience under your belt, and a lot of you guys fall in that category, how do you show up? How are you able to express and truly show and demonstrate value to them if you don't have that experience under your belt? How do you do it?
I would
Okay.
use the team record.
That's right. So you've already answered your own question, right? If you are a part of a team, you change the word I to we, and then there you go, right? That's how you solve it. Instead of saying I have sold yada yada homes, you can say we have. Instead of saying I have been in business for 6 months, you can say we've been helping buyers and sellers sell and transact here in this market for the last 15 years. Instead of saying I have negotiated X amount of contracts, we can say we have negotiated these many contracts. And how you're able to share that with them, the confidence that comes with that is by speaking the truth, not making up some BS story, being honest, but saying we've done this, we've done that, right? Like, and speaking that way is going to help them feel comfortable. Now, if they say, well, who's we? Say me, my team. And if they really dig in deeper, we're like, well, how many homes have you personally sold? Say, well, you're not hiring me alone, you're hiring my team, right? We have done this. And if they push even further than that, that means that there's something else wrong and they just don't trust you. And so, Tarek, I would say, hey, there seems to be something off here where you don't feel comfortable or confident that I can help you or we can help you in the purchase of this next house. Can you please share with me what your concerns are? And hopefully they will share their concerns with you and saying, hey, you know what? You just seem like a very young guy or a very young girl. And I'm not sure that, I feel comfortable that you have the skill set to represent me. And you can say, you know what? I really appreciate that. You're right. And thank you for flattering me. I'm not as young as you think I am. However, yes, I am young. However, I have a team that's going to support me, and we do all transactions together. We work as a team, right? And we're going to work together to make sure that you get the very best price. We get the very best terms for you. We work together when we're making offers, and we help one another come up with a strategy that we're going to implement to be able to get you that property that you want in the time frame that you want, in the terms that you want. Is that what you're going to want? That, right? You're going to want a team to support you instead of just one agent, because as a team we work together. We do better than we would if we're doing things on our own as an individual.
Nazar, can I say something? Kind of to go along with what Tarek said, I put in the chat earlier. I personally feel like you have to have a lot of confidence in yourself. You have to know that you're great, whether it be in real estate or just in general, knowing that you're going to do everything possible to get the job done for your client and do a good job for them. Know that whatever team you're on is the best. Like, you're not going to want to go anywhere else. There's a reason you chose the team that you're on, right? I think that you strongly inside have to feel comfortable and feel confident. And if you do, your clients aren't really going to question you because they feel that confidence. You're not giving them a reason to question you. Even if you don't have the answer to their question, you're going to make them feel like it's normal that you don't have that question, and things change often. So you just want to make sure before you come back to them with the answer. I just feel like you have to be confident in yourself.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, it's absolutely, having confidence comes from experience, but it also comes from preparation. Right? And so if you're prepared and you know what to say, and you've practiced that by role playing over and over and over again, then when that objection comes to you, then you're able to quickly overcome that objection and move on. And frankly, if you are confident in your skill set, they're never going to question your inability to truly represent them in the way that they should be represented. And so preparing ourselves, all the things we discussed today, every single one of those points is all about how we can prepare to be able to show up and for that job interview, basically, for the job of helping them buy a home. Okay. All right, guys. I hope this information was useful. I invite every single one of you to be able to go back and say, you know, where are my hangups? Where are my weaknesses? Where can I strengthen one aspect of my skills that I need to be able to strengthen so that I can be better at helping them? Is it my negotiating? Is it my market knowledge? Is it my ability to be able to know the ins and outs of the process? Do I need to work on my list of people that are in my network that I can help them with, both agents and also with lenders and preferred people that are going to be helping them? Like, what is it that I need to strengthen and better so that I can come prepared when I go to that presentation? I can say, this is why you want to hire me. And so when you put that buyer broker agreement out there for them to sign, you don't have any hesitancy because you yourself believe that you are the best person for the job of helping them buy their next home. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, then I suggest you don't represent anybody right now, that you spend the time needed to work on yourself so that you can show up better for them. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this week's masterclass. I appreciate every single one of you. I invite you guys to invite others to be able to participate or come on here. And then, of course, know that all these calls are recorded that you can watch online later, or you can go onto Apple and download it as a whatchamacallit. I can't think of the word right now, as a podcast. So you can listen to it at any point in time when you're just driving around. So anyway, you guys have an amazing Thursday, and I'll catch you guys next week. Bye-bye.